Penn State started 0-5 in 2020. Hard to believe, finishing with a losing record for the first time in James Franklin's time at Penn State, going all the way back to 2014. One of James Franklin's worst seasons ever, really, as a head coach. I know it was a weird year with the pandemic and opt-outs and injuries, but it was a weird year for everybody with pandemics, opt-outs, and injuries, and not everybody started 0-5 and finished with a losing record. With that being said, Penn State's way too talented of a team, and I think James Franklin has built up enough credibility to where he shouldn't be judged based off of last season alone. I think everybody expects Penn State to be one of, if not the most improved teams, at least in terms of overall record, in 2021 versus 2020. LSU falls into a similar category. Like Penn State, LSU took a giant doo-doo on almost every single football field they walked out onto in 2020. Both those teams way too talented to be hovering around the 500 mark. In today's video, we're going to take a look at Penn State. I'm going to give you a team preview and a game-by-game prediction. Let's go. Hey, good morning. It's Uncle Lou here. Yeah, that's right. It's me, Uncle Lou. And guess what? I'm a professional. No, I'm live for you on LouTube today. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. Also, in addition to that as well. Hey, subscribe to this channel if you're not already. Did you know I post college football videos almost every single day of the year? It's true. Some of them are even watchable. I don't know about this one. You'll have to let me know in the comments section at the end of the video. As usual, that determination is left up to you, the viewer. You can also let me know how wrong I am about Penn State's record in 2021. Let's get right to it. All right, let's start with head coach James Franklin. Like I mentioned at the beginning, not good last year, starting off 0-5. Penn State last year, like almost every year since Franklin has been there, pretty high expectations entering the season. And no matter how down anybody might have been on Penn State, no one predicted them starting the season off 0-5, but that's what they did. They finished 5-4, so kind of a tale of two halves of the season last year for Penn State. No shows for the first 5 games, but then reeling off 4 straight wins to close the season, including a win, I believe, on the road at Michigan, which is a place they don't win very often. So finished the season 5-4. You can't judge James Franklin based off of last season. That's not to say that he doesn't deserve any of the blame for what happened. Ultimately, it's the head coach's job to have the team prepared to play, no matter what. So, but you take a look at James Franklin, like I mentioned, got there in 2014, 7 wins in each of his first 2 seasons. He inherited a complete mess, really, after the NCAA investigations and penalties with the Jerry Sandusky, Joe Paterno stuff. So 7 wins each of his first 2 seasons. But since then, 11 wins, 9 wins, and 11 wins until last year, 4-5. Penn State's not a 500 team. James Franklin is not a 500 coach. I fully expect Penn State to rebound in a big way in 2021. We're going to take a look at their offense and defense and see if they got what it takes to make it happen. We'll start over on the offensive side of the ball. Now, despite the poor record, in 2020, Penn State was actually second in total offense in the Big Ten. So not all bad, not all negative in 2020 for Penn State. Second in the Big Ten in total offense, pretty good. The bad news, 17 turnovers. And keep in mind, they only played 9 games. That's it. That's almost 2 turnovers per game. You're not going to win very many games that way. So they're going to have to find a way to cut way down on the turnovers. I don't care how talented you are, how good of a team you have, or how bad your competition is. When you turn the ball over multiple times in multiple games like this, it's going to result in a couple of L's that maybe you didn't deserve. You also need to find a way to get more big plays offensively, more chunk plays, explosive plays. You hear coaches talking about this all the time now. It's an area that Penn State kind of struggled in, especially the first half of the season. Now, they returned Sean Clifford. This will be his 3rd year as starter at Penn State. Last year was not good. I mean, he had a ton of interceptions last year, but if you look at the last 4 games, when they went on that 4-game losing streak, over those last 4 games, he threw 5 touchdown passes and only had the 1 interception. So there's a direct correlation between Sean Clifford not turning the ball over, or Penn State in general really hanging on to the ball, not committing a bunch of turnovers, and winning games. If you go back to 2019, the last full season Penn State played, Sean Clifford was quarterback, 23 touchdowns, only 7 interceptions. And that was an 11-win season. These aren't eye-popping numbers, 23 touchdowns, but the point is if you can limit your turnovers, you're going to win a lot more games than if you're turning the ball over 17 times in 9 games. That was just absolutely ridiculous. So Sean Clifford does return at quarterback. You also get 2 of your top wide receivers back, Dotson and Washington. Last year they combined for 88 catches, 1,373 yards, and 14 touchdowns. So there are some playmakers and some talent on the offensive side of the ball. It's going to be up to that Penn State offensive staff to figure out a way how to get them involved. And like I said, big plays down the field. Tight end, 2 top tight ends return from last year if you don't count Freiermuth. Of course, Freiermuth was one of the best tight ends in America. He was on Penn State's team last year, got hurt halfway through the season, sat out the second half of the season. That gave way for these 2 guys to get a lot of playing time, and now they both returned this year. So it sucked last year for Freiermuth to have to miss all that time, but it's a benefit now heading into 2021 because these other 2 guys got that much more experience. The running back situation is something I'm interested to keep an eye on. I've been I don't know if fan is the right word, but Noah Cain, running back Noah Cain that plays for Penn State. Went to IMG Academy. He was somebody that Georgia looked at for a while. Always liked him in high school. I'm not a recruiting guru or anything like that, but it was a kid I've been watching for a long time from back in his IMG days. He's back, and he's 100% after missing some time last year with a foot injury. Had a season-ending foot injury last year. You also return your other 2 running backs. Who is this? Or 3, Lee, Ford. You pretty much get all your running backs back from last year, plus Noah came back from injury. So again, when you look on the offensive side of the ball, 2 experienced tight ends, a third-year starter at quarterback who has proven that, back in 2019 that he does have the ability to not turn the ball over. I know he turned it over a lot during the first half of the last season, but again, look at 2019, 23 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. You get your 2 top wide receivers back, and you get 4 experienced running backs back, including Noah Cain back from a season-ending foot injury. Offensive line, you have to replace 2 starters. That's not bad. Now, yeah, obviously you'd rather have all 5 back, but on average, only replacing 2 offensive line starters, that's not bad. Offensive line should take a step forward in 2021 over what we saw in 2020. Offensively, not a whole lot of cause for concern on Penn State, in my opinion, outside of the turnover issue from last year. Clearly, that's got to get fixed. Maybe you want some more big plays down the field. But you return quarterback, you return top 4 running backs, you return top 2 wide receivers, you return 2 tight ends with a ton of experience, and 3 out of 5 offensive linemen. No reason to think Penn State can't increase their offensive production from what we saw last year in 2020. You look over on the defensive side of the ball, defensive line, only 1 starter returns. This is a big concern on the defense here. Depth is going to be an issue too. You brought a couple of transfers in to try to fill in some gaps. We'll see how that works out, but only returning 1 starter on the defensive line is a cause for concern. Linebacker, all 3 return. That's the good news. Bad news, they ain't very good. They played terrible last year. Let's just be honest. Penn State fans, if you watched, you know you got to have much better play out of your linebackers than what you had last year. Penn State's been trying some different things going all the way back to the spring and now continuing into fall camp, moving some of those linebackers around, moving some of the guys on the outside to the inside, some of the guys on the inside to the outside, that kind of thing, trying to find a place where they can perform their best. We'll see if it pays off when the season starts. Defensive back should be the strength of the defense. You return a lot of talent back there. Castro, Fields, and Brisker return. Both of them probably could have been drafted, but they chose to come back and play again, so I think that'll be a strength of the defense. All right, let's put the schedule up on the screen and see what Penn State can do in 2021. All right, I've noticed this. I've been doing these prediction videos, but a lot of Big Ten teams are starting off the season week 1 with conference games. Of course, we got Nebraska and Illinois coming up this weekend in the week 0 game, and there's some other ones coming up in week 1 too, where the first game of the season for the Big Ten team is a Big Ten opponent. But you start off with a tough one here, week 1 on the road at Whiskey. Now, again, I feel like I have been picking up the slack for Penn State all offseason, people mocking them for their record for last year. And I've been telling people, there's no way Penn State's that bad. There's no way, again, LSU is that bad from those records last year. Just throw those records out the window. Penn State probably going to be one of the most improved teams in all of America, at least in terms of overall record. I've been high on Penn State versus what we saw last year, okay? That being said, you're losing week 1. I just can't see you winning week 1 on the road at Wisconsin, one of the toughest places to play in the Big Ten. You talk about tough places to play. Penn State at night for the whiteout, at Wisconsin with the jump around, the Big House, Michigan, the shoe, Ohio State. Wisconsin's in that category with those 4 teams. This is just a tough draw week 1. Now, with that being said, Penn State does have a ton of experience on this team. We talked about it on the offense, especially with the quarterback and the wide receivers coming back, all your running backs, 3 offensive linemen. You got a lot of experience. It's not that I don't think Penn State can win this game. I think they can. I think this could be a close game and a good game. I'm only giving the edge to Wisconsin in this one because it's week 1 and it's at Wisconsin. All other things being equal, if this game was at Penn State, I would most likely pick Penn State to win it. So this isn't a knock on Penn State. I just happen to think in this particular spot, Wisconsin gets it done and Penn State starts 0-1. Week 2, Ball State, you get on the good foot there with a win. Week 3, Auburn. Now, this will be a good one here. Auburn's got a brand new coaching staff. There's some talent on that team. They've had some transfer issues. And there's some other issues going on at Auburn, too, regarding vaccinations and their head coach's stance on that. I'm not going to get into that in this video here. If you want to know about that, look it up. You can find it. But, and of course, if a team is unable to play this season in the SEC due to COVID or contact tracing or anything else, it's an automatic forfeit. We'll see what happens with this one. Obviously, we want all the games to be played. I think you have a good chance to beat Auburn, and I'm predicting that you do beat them, mainly because Auburn has a new coaching staff, not because I don't like the coach, not because of anything that has been going on with him in the news lately with the vaccine, none of that. I just think Penn State is a veteran team, especially on offense. Auburn's got a brand new system coming in with a brand new coach. They've got some key transfers that transferred out on the defensive side of the ball. I've never been a big fan of Bo Nix, their quarterback. He's going to be starting 3rd year now. You get him at home. Kind of the same thing as with the Wisconsin game. If you were playing at Auburn, maybe I'd pick Auburn to win a close one. They got to come up there and play at Penn State. Happy Valley, is that what they call that? That's strange and weird, by the way. But I think you get the win. You're 2-1. Big win over the SEC. You can pat yourself on the back. Week 4, Villanova. What? Yeah, Villanova. I don't even think anybody knew they had a football team. I barely knew they had a basketball team. You'll get a win over whatever Villanova is. Week 5, Indiana. What's with all the Indiana hype? I don't get it. I've looked into it. I don't see it. Maybe I'm wrong. I've been wrong once before. I picked Georgia to beat South Carolina back in 2019, and it didn't happen. But maybe I'm wrong again. I don't see the hype. I don't see what the big deal is about Indiana in 2021. I don't see it. It's at home for you. I think you get the win over Indiana. You're 4-1. Then you got a tough stretch of games here. Starting off week 6 on the road at Iowa. And I think they beat you. Iowa's going to have a pretty good defense. They're a team, too, that returns a lot. I think this will be a close, low-scoring game, but I think Iowa finds a way to get it done in the end. It's your 2nd loss of the season. Illinois, Brett Bielema takes over head coach at Illinois. You get them at home. Regardless of what you think of Brett Bielema, Illinois is just not a very talented team, especially in comparison to somebody like Penn State. I think you get the win. Back-to-back road games here. Tough ones, too, at Ohio State and at Maryland. Maryland, I think, is a team that's going to be better than last year. Obviously, Penn State is, too, especially if you just look at the record. Ohio State, I'm picking you to lose that. I think Ohio State is still the cream of the crop in the Big Ten as a whole, including the Big Ten East. You've been their stiffest competition over the last few years. You got to play them on the road in the shoe. I think they get it done and beat you. You take a loss to the Buckeye. And I think it bites you the following week. I think you also lose on the road the next week at Maryland. You're going to have the loss to Wisconsin, the loss to Iowa. That 3rd loss to Ohio State is going to be a little demoralizing. I think it catches up to you the following week and you lose on the road at Maryland. Now, I think you're a better team than Maryland. I think you're more talented than Maryland. Like your coaching staff better than Maryland. Teams lose games all the time that we don't think they're going to lose. I think this is one of those cases this year. I think you take the L on the road at Maryland. Come back home for a couple of home games in a row here against Michigan and Rutgers. I think you win them both. Rutgers is another team that I think is headed up, but let's be real, they started way down here. So they're headed in the right direction, but nowhere near an Ohio State, a Penn State, a Wisconsin, an Iowa, anyone like that. I think after the back-to-back losses on the road, you come back home and get a win against both Michigan and Rutgers. You finish things up on the road at Michigan State, and I think you get the job done there. New head coach Mel Tucker, I guess it's his 2nd year there now. Don't know how he got the job. I don't think he deserved it, to be honest. He was only at Colorado for a couple of years, and I'm a Mel Tucker fan. I wish him nothing but the best, but Michigan State's in a rough spot if you look at their talent. In other words, there's just not a lot of it. I don't think they should be able to compete with a team like Penn State, and I don't think they will. So there you go. That's Penn State 2021, according to Uncle Lou. What is that, 8-4? I forgot yet. Probably not where Penn State man wants to be, but a big improvement over what we saw last year when you had the losing record. All right, give this video a thumbs up. Share it somewhere if you don't mind. Share it with your friends on Facebook, Twitter, whatever social media you do. Let them know about Uncle Lou. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. I'll see you again real soon, and have a good morning. Okay, how was that? Was that okay? All right. Did they really start 0-5 last year? Jesus, that's embarrassing. Probably the most embarrassing thing to happen to Penn State since they got caught spending 30 years trying to cover up pedophilia.